Intimacy is such a core part of any relationship. It's that feeling of being close, of being connected, of sharing a life together. So when a huge life event like an ALS diagnosis happens, it's totally natural that it brings up some really big questions about how that connection can continue. So let's get into it.
And that right there is the big question we're diving into today. When the physical self changes so dramatically, what happens to that essential bond between two people? It's really a journey about how couples learn to navigate these huge shifts, not just to hold on to what they had, but often to find something even deeper.
So to really get into this, we first have to talk about the challenges. An ALS diagnosis doesn't just happen to one person. It completely reshapes the entire world for a couple. It brings in a whole new reality that, directly affects how they experience closeness.
Okay, so let's get real for a second. On a purely physical level, the symptoms of ALS create some major hurdles. We're talking about things like muscle weakness and a kind of fatigue that's just overwhelming, making any physical activity exhausting. Then you have limits on mobility, changes in breathing, and less function in the hands and arms. All of this means that the ways a couple used to be physically close might just not be possible anymore. They have to be completely reimagined. But it's not just physical. The emotional side is just as complex. And what's fascinating here is how each partner faces a different set of worries. The person with ALS might be struggling with how they look or feeling like a burden. And on the other side of the coin, their partner might be terrified of accidentally hurting them or just completely worn down by the stress of caregiving. It's like they're living in two different but connected emotional worlds that require a ton of empathy to bridge.
And this, right here, really hits on one of the toughest psychological shifts. That dynamic can slowly change from lovers or partners to patient and caregiver. And when your day-to-day is all about managing medical needs and helping with basic care, it can be incredibly hard to step out of those roles and just be a couple again. It creates a new kind of distance.
Okay, so after hearing all that, you might be thinking, wow, how do you even begin to move forward? Well, this is the pivot point. It's all about making this huge shift in mindset, from focusing on everything that's been lost to being open to discovering completely new ways of connecting.
And to do that, the first step is to kind of zoom out and rethink what intimacy even is. So often we just equate it with sex, right? But it's so much bigger than that. It's about emotional closeness, affection, being a team, and having that shared sense of we.
And once you open up that definition, you start to see this whole beautiful spectrum of connection. Things like emotional closeness that you build just by talking, simple physical touch that isn't sexual at all, sharing memories, feeling trusted, feeling wanted. These are all incredibly powerful ways to be intimate, and they are always, always available. And that leads us to this really powerful idea, the core message here. It's not that intimacy goes away. It doesn't disappear. It just changes. It evolves. The human need for that connection is always there, but the way it's expressed can transform into something else, something just as profound.
All right, that's the big idea. But how does it actually work? How do couples actively build this new, evolved intimacy? Well, it turns out there are some pretty clear pathways to get there. And honestly, it all boils down to one thing: communication. Just look at how simple these questions are. They're not complicated or scary, they're invitations. Asking what feels comfortable for you, or what helps you feel close to me. These questions open the door for honest, gentle conversations that can lower anxiety for everyone and build this incredible foundation of trust. And once you open up that conversation, it naturally leads to this next super practical question. Okay, if the old ways aren't an option anymore, what do the new ways look like? How can we adapt physical closeness so that it feels good and safe and connecting for both of us? And you know what? The solutions are often surprisingly simple. It's not rocket science. It's just about being creative. Using pillows for better positioning, planning intimacy for the morning when energy might be higher, or just slowing everything way down. It's all about learning to work with the body's new reality, not against it. And we absolutely cannot forget the simple, raw power of touch. It's such a basic human need. When other, more complicated physical acts aren't possible, things like holding hands, a gentle back rub, or just lying next to each other in bed, those gestures become even more meaningful. They say, I'm here, I love you, we're in this together, without a single word.
And, intimacy isn't just about quiet, serious moments. It also pops up in the most wonderful, unexpected places. Sharing a private joke that makes you both laugh until you cry, getting totally absorbed in a movie together, or having one of those late night conversations where you just talk about everything. These things build a powerful sense of us that is every bit as intimate as anything physical. So, after going through all of this, what's the end result? Where does this incredibly difficult journey lead? Well, what the stories and the research show us is that while it's one of the hardest things a couple can go through, it can actually lead to a bond that is stronger and deeper than ever before.
And look, this isn't just some feel-good idea. There's real data to back this up. When couples maintain that strong, intimate partnership while dealing with ALS, it's directly linked to better emotional health, lower rates of depression and anxiety, and just a greater satisfaction with life for both of them. That connection is itself a form of strength.
And here's the part that is just so remarkable. So many couples say that being forced onto this path led them to discover parts of their love for each other they never even knew existed. They find a kind of emotional depth and reliance on one another that maybe they never would have found otherwise.
And that really brings us to this final, incredibly powerful idea. Over time, the focus of the relationship just shifts. It moves away from being about what a body can or can't do, and it becomes centered on the absolute core of their connection, just being present with each other, devotion, and a love that proves it can adapt, it can evolve, and in the end, it endures.